But one thing I am making clear to say today, and that is that a diet of 10% of calories from fat is not a healthy diet and may in fact be too low and create medical problems and disease in a large segment of the population. And that's what we're going to talk about, that we do need some fat in our diet.
A 39% decrease in heart disease death was demonstrated in those people with a higher nut and seed intake, so 5 times weekly of consuming nuts and seeds, compared with those with a lower nut and seed intake. Did you hear what I just said? Vegans who ate nuts and seeds more often had a 39% reduction in heart disease death. So if you flip the script on that, avoiding nuts and seeds actually increases the risk of heart disease death. Those aren't my words. That's what the study says. And studies down at the bottom of this video, in video description, you can look at them yourself and read them word for word, letter for letter. Okay? Hi everyone, thank you for watching. Ivan Blasquez here. So hopefully the title of this video got you to click. And let me explain, first off, this is a topic that I've really been wanting to touch on, and it talks about, this video is all about nuts and seeds, okay? And it deals with, the whole concept of veganism is in a sense, there's some ambiguity. There's different subsets of vegans, okay? There are some vegans who don't believe in eating nuts and seeds, and let me explain to you what I found. Basically, some vegans eat only what falls or would fall naturally from a plant. That is, foods that can be harvested without killing or harming the plant. So these foods primarily consist of culinary fruits, nuts and seeds actually, but some vegans don't even eat grains, believing it is unnatural to do so, and some vegans believe that it is improper to eat seeds, as they contain future plants. So nuts and seeds containing future plants. And some vegans will eat just juicy fruits and things like that. They believe that they should eat only plants that spread seeds when the plant is eaten. So there's a lot of different interpretations, okay? So, however, I will say that there are some vegans who actually emphatically believe that nuts and seeds are not good for the body or that it's unnatural, right? Well, that's why you come to my channel, okay? This video is long overdue, and I'm going to tackle this. You come to my channel because you want to get the kind of a comprehensive perspective on things. So let me go ahead and, because there is a video that's kind of talks about nuts and seeds not being natural for the body, and then they don't taste good, and this and that, and they contain toxicities and that kind of thing. So let me start off with this is straight from Dr. Fuhrman's book, The End of Heart Disease, okay? This is an excerpt. It says, in the Physicians' Health Study, which followed 21,454 male physicians for 17 years, the most dramatic relationship between any food and survival was reduced mortality associated with nut consumption, 2 or more times per week, compared with no consumption of nuts and seeds, okay? So right there, it showed that the consumption of nuts reduced mortality versus the absence of the consumption or the avoidance. Let me go in further. In this study, nuts and seeds had antiarrhythmic and anti-seizure effects and were associated with a 47% reduction in sudden cardiac death and a 30% reduction in total coronary heart disease death. But these benefits are not limited to meat-eating populations. This is where the plot thickens. A significant lifespan benefits are present in nut-eating vegans as well. Okay? This is right here. This is the study right here that's really going to bring it home. In the Seventh-day Adventist study, This is a blue zone from Loma Linda, California, which is primarily a plant-based, well, they're all plant-based populations, but this one is a high proportion of vegans in this cohort. A 39% decrease in heart disease death was demonstrated in those people with a higher nut and seed intake, so 5 times weekly of consuming nuts and seeds, compared with those with a lower nut and seed intake. Did you hear what I just said? Vegans who ate nuts and seeds more often had a 39% reduction in heart disease death. So if you flip the script on that, avoiding nuts and seeds actually increases the risk of heart disease death. Those aren't my words. That's what the study says. And studies down at the bottom of this video, in video description, you can look at them yourself and read them word for word, letter for letter. Okay? So it's actually a risk avoiding nuts and seeds to your health. This is based on the evidence that's out there. And if you Google nuts and seeds, or if you not even Google it, because you know the internet's full of a lot of misinformation. If you actually go to a scholarly journal website such as PubMed or some other, and if you put nuts and seeds in there, you'll get a plethora of studies that show positive benefits. You will get virtually no studies showing ill effects or negative effects. And that's the truth. You can Google it yourself. So if people want to believe what they want, nuts and seeds are unnatural or whatever, and we're going to get into the nut allergy aspect too. We're going to slam that. Oh yeah, I did my research. And as far as causing bloating and digestive, we're going to get into that too. So there's another study that said that those who consume more nuts have been shown to have a 35 to 50% lower rate of coronary events in 4 of the largest cohorts in nutritional epidemiologic studies. Okay? So a 35 to 50% lower rate of coronary events in 4 large cohort studies. And so the researchers, they concluded, they speculate, that this is probably due in part to the blood cholesterol lowering effects of nuts. A lot of people already know that, but this is something that many didn't know. I find this fascinating. Or perhaps to the unusually high content of the antioxidant vitamin E in nuts and seeds. And what is vitamin E? It's a fat-soluble vitamin. So what does that implicate? First off, vitamin E is an antioxidant. But if it's fat-soluble, what does that mean? It needs fats to actually properly be absorbed in the body. Okay, it needs fats to be, obviously, to be soluble in the body. So nuts actually contain a high amount of vitamin E. That's fascinating. I like that. And also, nuts also contain, and seeds also contain a high amount of arginine, L-arginine, which is an amino acid that helps to vasodilate and also produce nitric oxide in the body, endogenous NO2, endogenous NO levels in the body. So the research is clear on nuts and seeds. Now, let's go into nuts not tasting good, okay? What are nuts made of? Fat, right? A lot of protein too, and fiber and phytosterols, which is partly related to the cholesterol lowering effect. I've never eaten fat that didn't taste good. All fat is flavorful. That's why a lot of Americans eat a rich diet, rich meals and foods that are rich, because the fat gives flavor, it gives robust, aroma and it's just everything. And you're telling me nuts don't taste good? Are you kidding me? Man, I don't know what that was about. That's a weird assumption. Now, another thing. We have 5 taste sensations. We don't just have a sweet taste bud. We have 5 taste sensations: bitter, salty, sweet, sour, and umami, which is also known as savory. We have 5 taste sensations. We're not designed to just eat one taste, okay? So that kind of debunks that whole nonsense about nuts and seeds and all that. Oh, and the allergy. Let's go into that. Only 4% of adults and 4% of children suffer from food allergies. Look at the bottom of this video. I'm going to list those references, sources, and studies. Specifically, of those being from tree nut or peanut allergy, 1.1% of people suffer from these nut allergies. A total. So this is inclusive of tree nuts and peanuts. 1.1% of the U.S. population suffers from these allergies. You talk about blowing that out of proportion. People talk about allergies from peanuts and tree nuts. I just stated right there that 1.1% people suffer from it. Okay? And for those who suffer from it, there's even studies that show that when we eat peanuts when we're younger, we actually reduce the risk of having a peanut allergy. Look at those studies down below. Okay, so avoidance of peanuts perhaps could be increasing the risk of the allergy itself. Now, that being said, let's go in further. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease reports that approximately 1 in 90 people in the U.S., or 1.1%, have either a tree nut or peanut allergy. And the Food Allergy and Research Education stated that it is about 0.6% for each, 0.6% for tree nut allergies. Okay, if somebody wants to avoid peanuts, okay, but 0.6% for tree nut allergies. And if someone has an allergy to and I've even looked further into what these allergic reactions are, many of them are pretty mild in nature. But even still, if someone has an allergy, of course you'd want to avoid the food or mitigate it or whatever, maybe build up. There's a lot of different angles as far as how to improve that. But I will say that, because I have a couple clients, one of them I think has an allergy to a certain nut, but not to another. So, you know, you also want to be specific as to which nut you have an allergy to, because the ones you don't have an allergy to, you can reap the benefits of those, okay? Okay, so here's the big one, omega-3 status. Vegans across the board, in studies have shown this, that we tend to be deficient, particularly in the longer chain omega-3 fats, all right? Now, we already have that omega-3 issue, right? And it's not just among vegans, it's also studies have shown among omnivores too and so forth. But that's kind of outside of the scope of what we're talking about here. So vegans already are deficient in omega-3 fats, right? And omega-3 fats are very, very good for heart health and just in general health, okay? And particularly brain health, which Dr. Greger will allude to later. In fact, we're going to get Dr. Furman and Dr. Greger's take on nuts and seeds, and we're going to look at the DHA and EPA omega-3s as well, the long-chain omega-3s, okay? We're going to get a scientific perspective on this. So you have vegans, or you have a group of vegans who are avoiding nuts and seeds. So first off, we already have an elevated risk for omega-3 deficiency. Now we're avoiding the short-chain omega-3s that come from chia seeds and flax seeds. We're avoiding those. So now we're really perpetuating an already existing problem. To me, that's a head-scratcher. That makes no sense whatsoever. And we're going to justify it with these allergies and bloating and all that. And I just told you how low the prevalence is for allergies. I just told you how low it is, and how we can actually selectively pick the ones that we're not going to be allergic to, right? And eat them in moderation and prudently. And the blue zones eat nuts and seeds, okay? Those are the longest lived populations in the world. So what it comes down to is, if we were to eat flax seeds and chia seeds, even those don't even guarantee that we're going to be omega-3 adequate. In fact, there was a study that looked at a low-dose algae-derived omega-3 supplement and found that just a very low dose actually improved omega status in vegans and even in omnivores, and that study is going to be listed below. Okay. In fact, I personally take an algae supplement, but I take it very semi-regularly, like not even every day, like maybe every other day, because my diet is basically, I consume a lot of enough flax meal, chia seeds, and walnuts, which are also actually they're the highest source of omega-3 nuts, right? So I'm giving my body the best chance to I'm loading it with ALA, which is the short chain omega-3 fat. So hopefully, and the thing of it is there's individual variance in our ability to convert the ALA to EPA and DHA. Okay, so the conversion from the short to the long chain omega-3 fat varies across the board. I think research has shown that it's actually better in women than men, so there's a gender difference, but even more so there's an individual difference. Some people are unable to convert an adequate amount of ALA to those longer chain omega-3s that have been tied and associated with health, particularly brain health and even heart health, okay? So it's probably heeding on the side of caution to semi-regularly take an omega-3 supplement. The same as with a B12 supplement, which is why it's highly recommended for vegans to take a B12 supplement. I take a sublingual every, I don't know, maybe like once or twice, like maybe once every 2 weeks, quite frankly. I take one of those ones. So anyway, the point is that avoiding nuts and seeds could actually be increasing health risk. And I'm going to end the video with that. I'm going to let Dr. Greger and Dr. Furman take it away. Because, again, you know, freedom to believe what you want. I get that. But I'm reporting what the evidence is strongly showing. Okay? So we can believe what we want as far as why we want to avoid nuts and seeds, and I get it, but the evidence is definitely in complete disagreement with that logic and that rationale.
So, having sufficient long-chain omega-3s, EPA and DHA, may be important for preserving brain function and structure. So the next question becomes, what's sufficient, and how do you get there? The Framingham study found what appears to be a threshold value around an omega-3 index of 4.4, which is a measure of our EPA and DHA levels. Having more or much more than 4.4 didn't seem to matter, but having less was associated with accelerated brain loss, equivalent to like an extra 2 years of brain aging. That comes out to be about a teaspoon less brain matter, so it's probably good to have an omega-3 index over 4.4. The problem is that people who don't eat fish may be under 4.4. Nearly two-thirds of vegans may fall below 4, suggesting a substantial number of vegans have an omega-3 status associated with accelerated brain aging. The average American just exceeds the threshold at about 4.5, though if you age and gender match for the vegans, ironically, the omnivores did just as bad. There's not a lot of long chains and Big Macs either. But having a nutrient status no worse than those eating a standard American diet is not saying much. All we need now is a study that gives those with such low levels some pollutant-free EPA and DHA, and see how much it takes to push people past the threshold. And here we go. They took those eating vegan with levels under 4, gave them algae-derived EPA and DHA, and about 250 milligrams a day, took them from an average of 3.1 over the line to 4.8 within 4 months. And so that's why I recommend everyone eat a plant-based diet along with contaminant-free EPA and DHA to get the best of both worlds, omega-3 levels associated with brain preservation while minimizing exposure to toxic pollutants.
But we have to recognize that the American diet is very, very high in fat, and obviously eating excess calories of any type, especially excess fat, causes us to gain weight, and I call it dietary lipoaugmentation, meaning that we can eat in a way to quickly put fat on our waists, and we can augment ourselves so we can make ourselves look fatter very easily by eating the diet most Americans eat. Almost all the fats in the American diet come from animal fats, trans fats, and refined oils. So in other words, when I'm saying Americans are eating 40% of calories from fat, we're saying that that 40% is totally made up of animal fats, trans fats, and refined oils. So when we look at in scientific studies on the relationship between fat intake and disease, you're not really studying the relationship between fat intake and disease. You're studying the relationship between those types of fats and disease, because less than 5% of fat intake in America comes from nuts and seeds, what we're calling the healthy fats. Studying the dangers of fats, a fat in a diet in medical studies, doesn't look at nuts and seed consumption. They look at those low-nutrient, dangerous fats. Did you follow that?
We've known increased nut consumption has been associated with a reduced risk of major chronic diseases, including heart disease and diabetes. But do those who eat nuts actually live longer lives? Clinical trials have shown nuts help lower cholesterol and oxidation and improve our arterial function and blood sugar levels, but does all this translate into greater longevity? Researchers at Harvard examined the association between nut consumption and subsequent mortality of over 100,000 people followed for decades. In that time, tens of thousands died, but those that ate nuts every day lived significantly longer. Daily nut consumers had fewer cancer deaths, heart disease deaths, and fewer deaths from respiratory disease. And this was after controlling for other lifestyle factors, so nut consumers lived significantly longer whether they were older or younger, fat or skinny, whether they exercised more or smoked, drank, or ate other foods that may affect mortality. But nuts are so filled with fat, there may be a concern that frequent nut consumption can result in weight gain. However, that's not what they found, and in fact other studies have associated nut consumption with a slimmer waist, less weight gain, lower risk of obesity. If you look at all the studies put together, it's pretty much a wash. Diets enriched with nuts do not seem to affect body weight, body mass index, or waist circumference much at all. Just for a visual, this is one of the most recent such studies in which subjects were told to add to their diets either 0, 70, or 120 pistachios to their daily diet as quite an afternoon snack every day for 3 months, and the results looked like this. You can't even tell which line is which, whether they're eating no nuts or over 100 a day. Hence it appears the incorporation of nuts, about 1 or 2 small handfuls a day, would be advisable to ensure various health benefits without the risk of body weight gain. And what was nice about this review is that there was no apparent ties to the nut industry. How nuts do we have to go? Not much. Just a few servings a week may boost our lifespan and lower cancer rates, but it appears we have to keep it up. In the Predimed study, when longtime nut eaters were told to cut down on eating nuts or choose extra virgin olive oil, within 5 years they apparently lost much of their longevity benefit. Only the group that started out eating nuts and continued to eat at least the same amount of nuts had the significant survival advantage.